Okay, the doors are closing. We're about to start our third and final session in the mobile track for today. Want to introduce Geoff Slagle, whose name I probably butchered.
It's Geoff.
Geoff. So we're going to talk a bit about mobile driver's licenses, standardization happening in ISO and other places, another technology based on OpenID Connect, surprisingly enough. So I'll let Geoff take it away.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing? Wow, yeah. No, I'm excited to be here. I just want to start off by thanking Jeremy Grant, who was kind enough to put this on the radar for us at AMVA. I'd like to give you a little bit of background on who AMVA is real quick. We are the trade association that represents the DMVs and state and provincial law enforcement agencies in the US and Canada. We have a working relationship with the federal governments in the US, Canada, and Mexico. I'm their director of identity management, and I spend a lot of my time looking after those things that would kind of fall under the umbrella of ID management, but specifically for decades now have been working around secure identification, and I'm really excited and very optimistic about some of the gains that are right on the horizon. And that's kind of why I'm here today, is to maybe share some of this news with you, and also use this as an opportunity to reach out and say, hey, if you have something that you might be able to contribute, if you have something that maybe you're seeing that you think that we're missing, we want to hear from you. Okay? I'm hitting the advance button here. Okay, so is this up now? Or, okay, thanks. So just a look at the timeline here on driver licenses. This is a driver's license from the early 20th century. Piece of paper that was nothing more than an expression of a privilege. We jump forward a bit, and this was a driver's license from the early 70s. And you start to see that there are some changes. Probably the most notable change here is that there is a picture that has been added to it. We jump to today, and now this is probably more representative of what all of you are carrying around in your wallet or purse. Just by show of hands, does anybody in here have a license or an ID? Anyone? Okay, thank you. It just helps me know that you're still with me. So what I'm really here to talk to you about, though, is this immediate future that's right in front of us. And that is the work that is going on around the evolution of the driver's license from a physical document to zeros and ones. Again, I just want to emphasize this point. Most people are not interested in a driver's license because of the privilege that is associated with it. Most people are interested in a driver's license because of its identification value. And we run into this all the time. And while my community thinks that it should be the most important and that it should be the tier 1 stakeholder because they make the licenses, and then the guys that carry guns and badges pull people over and ask for them, they're really not the biggest consumer. They're really not the one that interacts with the cards the most. It's everybody else. And so that's one of the things that has led to a lot of the problems that we have with people defrauding us and committing ID-related crime. And so a lot of this stuff's going to look very familiar to you as we tried to put up defenses and tried to make sure that we were moving in the right direction with a good holistic approach. We did the best we could with what we had, with sort of the elephant in the room being that we still are kind of missing the mark on binding. How do we really, really know beyond just that photo that that person is connected to that thing they're carrying? So I call this the baggage of the physical document dependency. We have to have all of these things as a result of the vestige of these physical credentials. And warning systems are awesome. I don't know how many of you are in a job where you have to deal with these, but every day new alerts get added to a warning system that lets the community know, hey, there's been a theft of material, or these counterfeits have been intercepted, and this is what they're doing with them, and these are things that you need to be on the lookout for. The problem with that, of course, is a balance of access. All the people that would need to know that information are not going to know that information. Training, we spend an inordinate amount of time on training. for fraudulent documents. This also includes understanding people's behavior, and there's a tremendous amount of energy and effort that goes into that. Again, we're back to this issue of access, and the people that need that training don't necessarily get it. Document authentication, these are the black boxes, and I don't want any of my colleagues out there that might be in a business that makes a black box to think that I'm dinging you. I'm not. The point is that when you build a black box that interacts in an automated way and makes decisions on the authenticity of a document, and it has not been built off of cooperation with the actual issuing authorities, you run the risk of getting it wrong. And we've seen it happen, okay? So we work with the forensic document laboratories and know that there are counterfeits that have been trained into those black boxes. And so that would then mean if you were depending on the black box and the black box alone, you would get burned in making a decision about the credential. Source verification. In isolation, again, if all you're doing is verifying data, and this is in my world where we're very, very dependent on data verification, you run the risk of having an issue. So the data itself may be genuine, but the document that it's writing on could be fraudulent. Standards, I'm a standards geek. I've been running around the standards world since the mid-90s and have the distinction or battle wounds of having been in a number of different roles, both inside of ANSI and ISO. In fact, I was supposed to be in Lisbon right now attending an ISO meeting, but I had the opportunity to be here and talk with you all and get to experience Identiverse, so I'm happy I'm here. But standards are great. They're great when they're followed. The other thing that I think is interesting is that when you first pull together a group of people that are doing things differently and you start talking about the values of standards, they're normally in favor of them as long as everybody does things their way. And so we've had to try to deal with that in our community, because it's pretty easy, as you can imagine, keeping 69 DMVs when you add the US and Canada together, all on the same page cooperating. And then the last thing here is just, I wanted to make a point that we do believe that there should be stricter penalties on people for committing ID crime, and yet it still, by and large, remains sort of a slap on the wrist. So, something, let's see here, okay? I've got a quick video that I wanted to play for you all, and I'm not sure how long it will take to go ahead and switch and get that played for you. This is
The Mobile Driver's License, or Mobile DL, is technology that could take licenses and IDs out of the wallet and onto the smartphone. AMVA has worked with the DMV of the Netherlands to develop an operational proof of concept illustrating one way this new technology could work. AMVA members from the Card Design Standard Committee and EID Working Group developed the technical specifications that were used to create this proof of concept. The three main components involved in Mobile DL issuance are the issuing authority. This is the DMV that issues a Mobile DL as a result of already having proofed and vetted that someone is who they claim to be and they are eligible for a Mobile DL or a version of the MDL that is strictly for identification purposes if the person doesn't have driving privileges. The Mobile DL, the holder of the MDL and the credential. The MDL as an electronic credential exists on any number of electronic devices: mobile phone, laptop, tablet, wearable. The consumer. This is the relying party that is dependent on the MDL and will be consuming it in determining if someone is who they say they are and eligible for whatever the transaction requirements demand. In order to read and consume an MDL, the consumer has to have reading capability. This can be accomplished through any number of standardized transmission protocols. In this specific operational proof of concept, a QR barcode is used to establish a secure communication protocol that happens via Wi-Fi Direct. Other options include Bluetooth Low Energy, Near-Field Communication, Wi-Fi Aware, and many more. The reader can be in the form of any number of electronic device types: phone, laptop, tablet, wearable, or point-of-sale terminal. providing the device supports the engagement and exchange technologies available on the MDL. The DMV issues the MDL to the holder. The MDL holder uses their MDL for a transaction. For example, using the MDL to prove age to purchase alcohol from a relying party, or presenting the MDL to a relying party like law enforcement to prove identity and proof of driving privilege. The relying party in an online scenario is able to communicate with an issuing authority to verify the MDL, and also the means necessary in an offline scenario to verify the MDLs issued by the issuing authority. The first step in using a mobile DL is loading it onto the mobile device. The user creates a PIN code, which is used whenever the mobile driver's license is accessed. After creating the PIN code, the user requests a temporary 5-digit token, and this token is used to link the mobile device to the licensing record. The user logs on to a motor vehicle agency website with his credentials and inputs his temporary token from the device. The license and device are now linked on the back end, and the license is automatically loaded onto the app. Enrolling the license on the mobile device can also be done in person at the DMV. The user creates a PIN code and requests a temporary transfer token. This token is then shown to the DMV agent, who links it to the license holder in the back end. The back end automatically loads the license onto the app whenever the device is connected to the internet. Changes to any of the license data in the future are automatically transferred to the mobile device. So let's have a more detailed look at the mobile driving license app. After the license has been loaded, the user logs in using his PIN code, but this could also be a biometric feature like a fingerprint. The license contains the same information as the physical driver's license, including picture, personal information, and driving privileges. The mobile DL can be shared with other entities, retailers or law enforcement, for example, to prove identity. The user chooses to share the license, after which a QR code is shown. The QR code only contains the information necessary to set up a secure connection. It does not contain any license data itself. When the code is scanned by the reader, a connection is set up and the license data is transferred between the two devices. When the mobile driving license is transferred, the reader device is able to check all of the security features of the mobile driving license. The most important is a cryptographic signature over all the license data. This allows the reader to determine whether all the license data is unaltered. Combined with other security features, it allows the mobile driving license to be transferred even when both the user's device as well as the reader's device are offline, while still being able to check the integrity and authenticity of the license data. The mobile driving license also allows the user to only transfer a limited data set from his license. For example, a user could prove he's older than 21 at a bar. He selects the age transfer option in the app, and the information is transferred to the reader device by scanning the QR code from the license holder. Mobile DL could also be used during encounters with law enforcement at the roadside with an officer who has a smartphone that contains a reader device. When it's safe for the officer to do so, the officer is able to obtain full license information from the operator's MDL. The QR code is scanned, a secure connection is set up, and the license information is sent to the officer's reader device. Because many officers will not have the technology required to read an MDL, most jurisdictions making MDL available will still issue the physical credential and require it to be presented to law enforcement upon demand. If a user obtains a new mobile device, he can move his license from the old device to the new one. The user creates a PIN code on his new device. He then requests a temporary transfer token, which is used as an input on the original device. The back end now automatically sends the license to the new device and deletes it from the old device. This allows the user to change devices holding the license without needing any interaction from the licensing agency. Mobile DL technology is a new and exciting technology, and there are many ways in which it can be developed. While it won't completely replace the physical DL, its application will provide additional benefits to consumers and relying parties. This video demonstrates just one operational proof of concept. Many of AMVA's associate members are also crafting mobile DL solutions.
Okay. And for the record, I put our AV assistants here in the room on the spot very much at the last second and asked him to do that. So thank you, sir. I appreciate the help with the video. So a couple of things I just want to point out to you. You probably picked up on the term operational. This was really, really, really big for us. Was this is a paradigm shift away from how people are used to using their cards. You pull your card out, you hand it to somebody. And we're like, can't do that anymore. And a big reason we can't do that anymore is we're trying to deliver on a privacy benefit where people are in more control over that information and that PII. And what we're doing here allows for that to happen. And so I'm just going to hit you with some terminology. I'm sure by now, after seeing the video, most of this is going to make sense. When we talk about a mobile DL, it may not be a phone, okay? It could be a one-function wearable, it could be a tablet, a laptop, it could be anything that information or that data could ride on. It's most likely, though, to be a phone. And all of the pilots and proof of concept work that's been done and an implementation that's being worked on right now in the Midwest, it's a phone. But what it's not is this. And this little guy here is the bane of my existence. I hate him. Anybody know his name? Anyone? You know who this is? This is the Geico pig. This is Maxwell. And we keep running into this thing of talking to people about the concepts, and as soon as we do, they go, oh, you mean like, you pull out your phone and you show it to somebody. We're like, no, because that that perpetuates the same problems that we have in the physical world. We do not want to do that. We want to actually fix the pain points that we have. All right, so offline and online. The low-hanging fruit, best we could understand it, was to go after the offline use case first, where both the MDL and also the relying party do not have a connection, and the PII would reside on the device. We recognize and obviously see tremendous benefits in an online model and are working on that as well. We also have attended and unattended. Again, we felt that attended was the thing that would be easiest to do initially, where it's person to person. And I also want to make a point of saying that we absolutely have a goal of being able to move so that a person would be able to use their MDL in an online transaction. In order for this to work, though, we're going to have to continue to progress with the standards that are being hammered on right now over in Portugal as we speak. The AMVA jurisdictions were the ones that came together and said, okay, we're the policy experts, we're not the technical experts. We're the ones that are going to make sure that whatever we do here with this MDL is actually, it's going to function and it's going to do the things that we need it to do. We'll depend on industry, we'll depend on the technical experts in the standards arena to help guide with how that's going to happen. But this is just a top whatever of the requirements that we had come up with. I don't think that there's anything on there that is going to be all that eye-opening. I think I would again emphasize that if we end up with MDLs that only work within the jurisdictions that they're issued, we failed. Okay, a goal from the very beginning was something that was interoperable. And by the way, that pilot that AMVA did with the Netherlands expanded. And we brought in Japan as a third partner. And we worked with the National Police Agency in Japan, which is the licensing authority there. And it was really cool how they were able to take what we did and expand it further by including a biometric, which was facial recognition, and also a translation, so that if you had for example, English MDL and it was being read by Japanese law enforcement, it would go ahead and do the translation for them. And then if you encountered a Japanese MDL and you needed to understand what that information was, it would do the translation. So we thought that was kind of neat. Also, another point that I want to make, and I can't emphasize this enough, so you may hear me say this one more time, non-reliance on device security. And all we mean by that is you don't want to be at the mercy of whatever the device is. And as I've learned from my colleagues in industry, it's a hostile environment. So it comes back around more to, is the data that you're now going to be transacting with actually dependable? Is it trustworthy? Did it come from someone who you can have trust in, and very importantly, is the person actually connected to it? We have a chance to actually know that the individual is in fact connected to whatever that information is that they're trying to use. Use cases, AMVA has worked with TSA since its inception on a number of different things. One of the areas that we assist them with is their next generation passenger screening ideas, and we'd been kind of, more than murmuring in their ear for a long time that they could do better. And I'm not saying that they're not trying, I'm saying that it's a huge task. And if you go back to the beginning of my presentation when I talked about the pain points associated with the physical, they have a lot of challenges. They could encounter 500 variations of driver licenses on any given day and have to make a decision in about 2 seconds on whether or not they're legitimate. How many of you think that they always get it right? Anybody? Okay. All right. Another use case example that we've got is law enforcement at the roadside. What you didn't see in the video is that through an NSTIC grant, AMVA was a beneficiary, by the way, of the first round of NSTIC grants that were awarded for a really cool project that looked at how you could have a cross-sector digital identity. And a couple of our members and associate members also received a grant where they were doing some MDL work, but it's law enforcement at a distance can actually do the call and say, hey, if you've got an MDL, will you release it to me? And the driver can release it to law enforcement. And that way the law enforcement has as much information as they can before they walk up on the person. And the net on that, you really want to know the most important part? Limits the time that they're at the roadside. You know why? People die daily at the roadside. It's not a matter of ID crime. It's a matter of someone not paying attention because they're on their phone or they're doing something, they're distracted, they're drowsy, they're drunk, and they end up hitting law enforcement and others that are pulled over at the side of the road. So we're excited at what some of those efficiencies could deliver. And then the age verification. I don't know how many of you were in here for the session before, but they were talking about some of the things related to maybe vending scenarios where someone walks up and they're able to go ahead and have a transaction without giving away any more information than they have to. Yes, absolutely. Why do you need to know my date of birth? Why do you need to know anything other than I'm me? I'm actually connected to this identity I'm trying to use, and I'm, in this case, age of majority. And then the really cool stuff, I think, is yet to be seen, and that's the online transactions that will come. A battle cry in my community is don't make the public come in if they don't have to. So, and guess what? Public doesn't like to go into the DMV. I'll say that Disney was cruel in its characterization of us in Zootopia. Those of you with small children will get that reference. But if you can get people to be able to do things online and not have to come in to see you, that's a big incentive. And then the last point, and I'm going to wrap this up so that we've got a couple minutes for questions, is we're moving away from the wallet. We want to have something more where you have a person and they are them. They're not going to change. Privileges that they have may come and go. I moved to Florida and decided I wanted to start riding a motorcycle. So I took a class and I took a test and I received an endorsement. So I now can ride a motorcycle. But I had a security clearance, my security clearance expired, and I had a couple hunting permits that also expired, and they dropped off. But I didn't change. I'm still me. And the me is the vetted and proofed identity that was done by the issuing authority, in this case, the DMV. These are the standardization concepts. Right now, we're working on arrows 2 and 3. Which I've already kind of talked about a few minutes ago, but it's that interaction between the MDL holder and the relying party, and in the case of an online scenario, the callback that a relying party would do to the issuing authority. We're really not that concerned with one. That's not where we think that the focus or attention needs to be. It's actually 2 and 3. And this sort of summarizes, and this is like, I don't know, I think this is just specific to our committee, but we use these terms that attended offline that's the very first thing we're doing with the standard, and then close behind that is the attended online, And then the unattended is more of a, we're continuing to work on it. It's not going to come as quickly as the offline, or as the offline and online. And then I threw this in for the Star Trek people that are here. I had a Star Wars title for the presentation, and I figured I'd disappoint a bunch of you because I didn't have a whole lot of Star Wars references. And now I'm ending with a Star Trek reference. But I don't know what the future looks like. I have some ideas, but I do think that I have some hope that at least in our community, we're starting to see relief on the horizon. And I think that there are going to be a lot of people that are going to be able to benefit from it. So with that, I'll go ahead and take any questions you've got. If you scan me in the exhibit hall, apparently the email that was associated with whatever that pointer was wrong. So I would recommend that you go ahead and jot down my email here. And I'm happy to take any questions that anybody has.
Hey, Geoff, just real quick question. So we're looking at mobile driver's license, and what we're finding is, from an attribute standpoint, the ability to, I guess, the status of the driver's license.
Yes.
Whether it's revoked,
Right.
Active, suspended.
Right.
Have you looked at that? Is that part of your roadmap? And it seems like a gap right now.
No. Absolutely. And in fact, you know, that is that's one of the benefits that this potentially brings, especially in the online use case, because it means that in real time, not only will you know that that person is who they claim to be, but whatever the privilege is intact. Where with the offline, you don't necessarily know that. You know it's a snapshot, but a snapshot of what things looked like yesterday is better than how things looked 4 years ago, which is, you know, we keep measuring against, okay, well, compared to the physical document scenario. But yes, status is absolutely part of the work.
So I'm curious about potential abuse,
Yeah.
and specifically around the use case of college student,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
getting their friend to, there was a thing for like, oh, here's a new device and put in the new code.
Right.
Could, you know, their friend potentially put their
Yeah.
stuff on a different phone and then,
Yeah, no, it's a great question. If we build this in such a way that it makes that possible or easy, we failed. So everything that we're, like, for example, conceptually, the MDL was predicated on an individual having to authenticate that they were actually connected to that credential every time it's used. Every time. And you know, how you go about doing that operationally, it is another thing. But I mean, the concept is good, and it's supposed to protect against what, you know, you're describing.
right.
And in the video, it was very subtle, but you saw that enrollment part where it was you enter, you know, a PIN and then you get an enrollment token. Well, really, ideally what's going to happen is when that MDL is actually created for the holder, a biometric will be part of the equation. The authentication of that biometric each time that thing is used is going to absolutely be necessary if we're going to protect against the, hey, I'm borrowing my friend's phone so that I can
Yeah.
get into the bar or buy or whatever.
So does that, like, essentially you're trying to eliminate even needing the photo? Because I still
Yes.
think that the photo would prove some
No,
bit of-
and the photo is the absolute bare minimum.
Yeah.
So at an absolute minimum, the photo, you know, is in the mix. Yep. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Geoff. It's wonderful to see you at Identiverse.
No, it's good to be here.
Can you comment on the business drivers? I was at an AMVA conference earlier this year, and one thing that may drive the adoption of MDL are some of the business benefits. And someone gave the example, if liquor stores could prove via an audit that every person that purchased liquor was checked for the ID and for age, then they might get a discount on their insurance. And you could draw that analogy with many different kinds of business, not just the liquor case. But I think there's some business drivers that may help really
Yeah.
push this forward.
Yes, thank you for that question, or that point, actually. And yes, it's true. In fact, daily I'm contacted by people primarily in the commercial sector that are interested in what we're doing, and they've already done the math, and they figured out that an investment in this is going to save them, you know, significant money, And in the case of the age-restricted product sale, yes, there are jurisdictions that will actually say to the whatever the business is, if you are using this kind of technology, you will protect your license to be doing what you're doing, because you'll have something to be able to, to go back to. Any other, are we out of time? Yeah, okay.
We're over time.
All right,
so
thank you very
much, Geoff. Okay, thank you for attending the mobile track.